How would you improve airport experiences? I've spent a lot of time in airports recently.
So, I mean, one of the interesting ones is they're too big. I mean, the shopping center component, which was novel when it first started, has now become obligatory. And you basically have to walk through the Houston Galleria before you can catch your plane. And London City Airport, you've probably used that, have you?
No, I've never been.
Oh, you've never? Okay. It's... This is what's so funny. Okay, so there's an idea I'm playing with in marketing generally and in innovation, which I call reverse benchmarking. Okay, so the idea is what most companies do is they benchmark themselves against their competition. Now, the great writer on this is a guy called Roger L. Martin, who's he's Canadian, my own personal business guru, extensive writer. He was dean of the Rotman School in Toronto. And he wrote a piece called Benchmarking is for Losers, okay? That all you do is you diminish your margins by making yourself in direct competition with your other competitors. So you don't benefit your profits or your shareholders, and also you don't benefit your customers, okay? And the reason you don't benefit your customers is because they're then deprived of choice and differentiation. And you don't benefit the overall category because the category loses value because it's more homogeneous, okay? And my argument is, and I got this inspiration from that great book, you've probably had him on, Will Guidara, have you ever had him on?
No.
Okay, Unreasonable Hospitality, fantastic book, about a guy who ran 11 Madison Park. He's a major sort of food innovator in all kinds of ways. I think he's married to the woman who invented cereal milk, which I think is one of the most brilliant inventions, which is, the milk you get at the bottom of Cocoa Pops would be the British, which is tastier than anything else you've ever drunk. And she had the inspired idea of just flavoring milk with breakfast cereal and selling it as a drink, which I have to say, I think is just genius. Okay. Now, his brilliant thing was he's number 50. I've told this story a lot, so apologies to people who've heard this before. He's number 50 restaurant in the world in the San Pellegrino Restaurant Awards. It's a 3-star Michelin restaurant in New York. That's 2011. He wants to get to number 1. Pretty, remote ambition. It's not going to be easy. But one of the things he did was what I call reverse benchmarking. He took his team to the number 1 restaurant in the world, and they started doing what we all do, which is, how are we doing compared to them? They do this really well, let's copy it, etc. And at the end of the whole experience, Guidara just goes to his team, I'm not interested in any of that stuff. They're already doing that well. If we merely copy them, no one will notice. What I want to know, given that you've just been to the best restaurant in the world, according to San Pellegrino, is what was a bit disappointing? Because we're going to double down on that, all right? And the approach was they finally came up with 2 things that were a bit disappointing, which was, one, the coffee was nothing special. I mean, I found American coffee quality unbelievably high variance. And they just said it was fine. The coffee wasn't disgusting. It was just there was nothing particularly interesting about it. And of course, because he'd taken a few people to the kitchen along, a few of them wanted to drink beer, and the beer drinkers were treated a bit like second-class citizens compared to the wine drinkers who are given all manner of bullshit with a, sommelier and a lot of conversation about the terroir, And so he goes back to his own restaurant and he appoints one of his guys who's a coffee obsessive, the coffee sommelier, and another guy, I think, from the kitchens who is obsessed with American craft beers or all craft beers. He makes him the beer sommelier. Now, imagine you're in this restaurant. Now, most of the people in the restaurant aren't going to ask for beer, but 10 or 20% of them will. Okay. And they're expecting, we got Sam Adams on draft, or we've got this in bottles. And instead, they get a beer menu from the beer sommelier with suggested beer pairings. The citrus IPA goes really, really well with the cod or whatever it might be. Now, those people, you've blown their minds. Okay. It's not a question of, hey, that was a bit better than I expected. So this reverse benchmarking is find out something that your competitors have completely overlooked. Do it really, really well, and I would argue as a marketer, and then actually turn it into a feature, spotlight it. And you could almost take this and make it into I'm not going to say it's everything, but it's a generalized theory of innovation, which is, what Steve Jobs did was take a field where everybody was focused on the tech and the capability of the machine to the complete exclusion of any aesthetic or usability consideration.
You made it beautiful.
And what he does is go, okay, now what I'm not saying is you can be shit at the technology so long as you make it lovely. No, you merely have to be kind of, what you might call top decile in what you do somewhere else. But then you go off and you find the area which everybody else has ignored. I look at things like, I'm a big fan of the Moxie hotel chain. I often talk about that. And what that is double down on the ground floor.
Yep.
Make the ground.
We work on the ground floor. Don't feel weird when you've checked out.
And that's one of the marvelous benefits you discover through experience. That actually after I've checked out of a Moxie, every other hotel makes me feel homeless. But the Moxie, you okay, take your shopping trolley and your plastic bags and go and push them through the streets until your flight leaves. Whereas in the Moxie, you just hang out for another 5 hours and get on with some shit and order their coffee, and you don't feel remotely unwelcome.
So what would you do to airports?
Right, that's a really interesting question. What interests me about London City Airport is the fact that there's a natural benchmarking tendency, which is that when I was a kid, the rich kids had been to, they might have been to, actually wouldn't have been Dubai back then, would have been Sharjah or something, but they'd been to Schiphol or they'd been to Changi in Singapore. They go, it's amazing, those shops, it's like, because back then we hadn't seen a shopping centre before and it was really novel. I bought Walkman, it was fantastic, right? And then suddenly all airports became like that, okay? And suddenly people went, if you've been to London City, it's incredible. You go in and 6 minutes later, you're at the gate. There are hardly any shops. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So there is a really, really interesting idea. I mean, there is scope, lots of scope for really interesting innovation. I think it's a lot easier also. It's worth noting it's a lot easier. If you want to premiumize an experience, it's a lot easier to innovate on the ground than it is in the air. Now, there is a fantastic thing, which a friend of mine called Jeremy Stone tells me about, which is at Washington Dulles, where they still have these vehicles, which I think were designed by Eero Saarinen, the Finnish kind of inventor, where your lounge drives to the plane. Okay, so you get in something that looks like a room where you're all seated down and, you've got a few little tables and you're comfortable. And then the actual lounge is on wheels and drives to the plane.
Wow.
Now, it's a really, really interesting innovation because there's a Soviet-era innovation thing called TRIZ, which is, it's the Russian for a technique for creative innovation or something. And they have a whole list of kind of principles, one of which is make the thing that stays still move and make the thing that moves stay still. It's just something in kind of mechanical and engineering innovation, which is a different way of looking at things. And so what's interesting about that, of course, is the planes don't need then to go to a gate. So the constraint, first of all, you probably save a lot of fuel because the plane doesn't have to spend so much time taxiing. The plane can be parked pretty much next to the runway.
You can have a much smaller number of gates or whatever it is.
And it means that every time you expand your airport, you just buy a few more vehicles. You don't have to go into a $1 billion
Well, you treat your airport more like a car park than a building. Right? How can we slot these different maneuvering Lego pieces together so that they can fuck off in a straight line toward where the plane is?
Here's a weird one. So one thing would be, nothing to do with airports themselves, but it occurred to me the other day. I was trying to do a bit of reverse benchmarking. No hotels offer you a monitor. Okay.
An external
you
screen.
might have a 4K, 85-inch TV, but in order to plug your laptop into it, you'd have to rip the thing off the wall.
Yep.
Okay. It's weird to me that no hotels offer a dual screen experience. And it's weird to me that car hire companies, if you wanted to employ all of America's young people in the summer, see if you agree with me. If you could pay a car hire company, very simple thing, you pay $100, okay? And it's big money, okay? We will meet you at the arrivals gate and with your keys, and we will walk you to your car.
Oh yeah, that's good. Like a concierge.
Because That's the word. Car hire is terrifying. If you're familiar with the airport, it's fine. Okay, but if you're going,
where's the Avis? Oh no, that's the Enterprise.
We've moved off site, so there's a shuttle bus.
There's a huge queue that I need to get through.
You've got luggage.
Oh yeah, I haven't pre-registered my driver's ID. All of this stuff hasn't been submitted. Here's a QR code. Here's a single piece of ID that says I'm the person with the QR code. Here's a one-time password that's texted to the phone that two-factor authenticates the fact I'm here. In other news, this episode is brought to you by Momentous. If your sleep's not dialed, taking ages to nod off, you're waking up at random times and feeling groggy in the morning, Momentous sleep packs, how did I miss both of those? Are here to help. They're not your typical knock-you-out supplement overloaded with melatonin, just the most evidence-based ingredients at perfect doses to help you fall asleep more quickly, stay asleep throughout the night, and wake up feeling more rested and revitalized in the morning, which is why I take these things every single night and why I trust Momentous with my life, or at least with my sleep, because they make the highest quality supplements on the planet. What you read on the label is what's in the product and absolutely nothing else. And if you're still unsure, they've got a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can buy it completely risk-free, use it, and if you do not like it for any reason, they will give you your money back. Plus, they ship internationally. Right now, you can get 35% off your first subscription and that 30-day money-back guarantee by going to the link in the description below or heading to livemomentous.com/modernwisdom using the code modernwisdom at checkout. That's livemomentous.com/modernwisdom and modernwisdom at checkout. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip with Rory, who's still here, by the way, say hi, Rory. Hello, there you are. The full episode is available right here. Go on, press it.